The President's remarks to the World Food Congress, June 4th, 1963.
We have the ability, as members of the human race, to eliminate hunger from the face of the earth in our lifetime. We need only the will. To know how to conquer the problem and not conquer it would be a disgrace for this generation.
Dawn, and as the sun breaks through the piercing chill of night on the plain outside Coram, it lights up a biblical famine, now in the 20th century. The relief agencies do what they can. Save the Children Fund are caring for more than 7,000 babies. Some of the very worst are packed into big sheds. 7,000 now, most apparently dying of malnutrition, pneumonia, and the diseases that prey on the starving.
Ethiopia does hate to be portrayed as the country that suffers from famine and so on, especially because of all of the attention, especially for the 1984 famine. And frankly, I got involved in Ethiopia around that famine of 1984. This is pretty good compared to what it was then. And it's good in the sense that, even though people are still impoverished and going through that terrible struggle that people do, even though child mortality is still too high, even though incomes are still too low, there's actually been incredible progress. But we're still seeing problems with sufficient grain on the markets and things like this. And so I think that there's tons of issues.
And it is true that this country is still poor, but with a high potential. And the main resource of this country is the agricultural production. The first priorities is to fight against hunger, is to fight against extreme poverty. It is to increase the food production.
There are a very large number of people existing on subsistence agriculture, and these people often just don't have enough, don't produce enough in a year to feed themselves.
So irrigation is very important because previously by rainfall they produce once in a year. Now at minimum producing twice in a year, sometimes 3 times in a year they are producing. The production return is also very increasing. Nowadays they develop such capacity and cover everything for their children and send their schools. Their children is attending school. Anyhow, this is really the result of promoting irrigation. They are benefiting from the irrigation. Here in the right sides of the road, there is a lake around here, so they are easily access the water. On the upper side, it's difficult to access water. There is no water, potable water accessibility around there, so people are affecting in various waterborne diseases. If the shock happen, drought, and whatever the shocks happen, and immediately they are under the risky. Sometimes to access potable water, they are going a long distance, in average around 10 kilometers.
Ethiopia is also one of the countries who is paying the price for the climate change issues which we didn't cause. More than 80% of the population is living in the rural area, and they are dependent on small-scale agriculture. Therefore, the livelihood is dependent on natural resource, and the climate change, including the global warming, is directly affecting the rural community. Therefore, it is we that are really sensing the impact of climate change on the developing world, and therefore it is a big issue for Ethiopia.
And obviously there are people who move to towns and cities and find themselves still, not having those opportunities. Even though those opportunities might be a lot better than where they came from, in a rural area where there was no other alternative opportunities, just the agricultural work. So I think that that's a tough transition. Children in urban areas obviously have terrible problems, and so, how do we get that balance right between urban and rural programs? With all of the problems in urban areas, and people crowded together in unsanitary conditions, obviously leads to great concerns about disease and so on.
Almost 60 to 80% of the diseases are transmitted due to lack of water, sanitation, and hygiene service. So the main diseases that we find in the 10 top diseases are water-related diseases. We have typhoid, we have different kind of diarrhea, we have intestinal parasite problems, we have amoebiasis and other intestinal issues. So in Ethiopia, the urban development, if you see the urban development, it's developed haphazardly. We don't have proper plans, and also land management is also an issue because the land is owned by the government, but we have a lot of informal settlements and illegal settlements. We have a lot of people that migrating from the rural to the urban. So if they come, when they come to the urban, they can't afford to rent these houses and live in the urban areas by the income they get. So what they prefer is they prefer to have these illegal settlements.
The main reason is really a lack of income for the poor population, and the fact here in Ethiopia that the area of the land cropped is very small. It is not enough for the people.
Ethiopia has the advantage of, especially in a neighborhood like the Horn of Africa, of looking good by comparison. And so, whatever problems you have here in terms of organization and being able to deliver things and so on, it's generally so much better than most of the surrounding countries that it actually does benefit by comparison. And when a donor comes to Ethiopia, they can say, yes, I can see the impact of the resources that I've put in.
European Union with the member states, the total of the development aid by year is more than $1 billion of dollars. No, this support is still important.